Hey everybody, Cannibal here. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the basics of fort battles, how to do them, what you need, and where you can find some information if you need it. So, before I get started, I just want to let you know that if you want to become a fort lead, it's kind of insane, super expensive, and it's going to be frustrating. It's a learning experience every time. There's so many variations. You're just going to have to get used to the frustration, but eventually you'll get some things that'll work for you, and they'll evolve as you grow, and then there'll be new things that open up and possibilities for you, and so on. So you'll grow as a fort lead. So don't get too frustrated by it, but it is a little insane. Right. Okay. Well, that's not why you've come here. You've come here to learn. So let's get started. So the first thing to know before you get started is I'm going to give you the basics. These are just the basics. That's probably really all I'm capable of doing, because there are some much more advanced players out there who've been playing this much longer than I have, who have a lot more experience in chalice battles and emperor battles and all of those things, and they're a lot more advanced. They study all of the reports and the battle videos and everything, and they go into all of the statistics and everything in a much bigger way. So I'm going to give you the basics that's worked for me, that's helped me win quite a few battles on forts, some wows, and some great times at Dragon Arena. But just know that these are the basics, and there are lots more advanced things that we can go into that I'm not going to cover in this video. Okay, first thing, what you're going to need is some good gear. Obviously, depending on the kingdoms you're in, the kind of players you're going up against, that's going to vary. Your requirements are going to vary. If you're in a new kingdom, you're playing a bunch of new players, then you're not going to necessarily need as much champ gear. But you should be, if you're going to be a fort lead, you need to be working up to champ gear, mostly because it has all the HP and everything that you need to win those fort battles. You're going to need 4 essential heroes that I'm going to talk to you about here in a minute. You're going to need to do wonder research, do all of tree 1, and if you can, do all of tree 2. Those are going to help you with all your stats and everything you need to win against tight battles. And you need as many stats as you can get your hands on. You need, in particular, you need a lot of HP. Don't overlook HP. Treat it as equal with attack, and just get as much of it as you can everywhere you can. And the last thing you need to know, the most important thing, is you need to understand what the comps are, the typical comps, what the counters for those comps are, and how to put them into play. So for gear, like I say, champ gear is the best, and mostly because it's geared to give you the most attack stats, army attack stats, and army HP. In particular, the most important of the gear on the champ gear is really the accessories, which give you an advantage on the HP that you're going to be using in a lot of these fort battles. But also the helmets give a lot of HP, and some of the other pieces as well. But you can have a situation where non-champ gear is very useful. For example, if in this set here, you've got 3 pieces that aren't champ gear, 4 pieces that aren't champ gear. Cups, as an example, can be very useful in a lot of wonder battles. The firewall plate that we're using here can also be very useful in wonder battles, in particular for the cav stats. The skull crusher can be used in a lot of scenarios. And the mitts have great HP, which especially if you max them out like I have here, that's going to be very useful in fort battles. So those are some pieces that aren't champ gear that can still make you competitive. So, but there's really, when you're going up against a really big opponent, there's no substitution for some of that champ gear, and you're gonna find that out pretty quickly. But as you're getting stronger and stronger, and your opponents are getting stronger and stronger, you can still use a lot of this non-champ gear and still do okay. Like I say, you got to really maximize your army attack and army HP, and that comes through the gear, the heroes, the jeweling, the research, the artifacts, the castle stars, everything that you can think of. You're just trying to max out everything you can in these mixed rallies in order to win these fort battles. So that's really what it's all about. But also on the gear, remember the emphasis here is on army attack, army HP, and so those champion jewels. So you can't jewel like a trap. You know, a trap would sometimes jewel with 3 attack jewels in their sets, and with fort battles you really need those champion jewels in there to get that HP. So that's usually the preferred way to go. So typically you'll jewel for 2 troop types plus the champion jewel. So you'll if you're doing an 848 comp, you'll jewel for infantry and cavalry with a champion jewel, or if you're doing 884, you'll do infantry range with a champion jewel. So that means sometimes you'll have to be changing out your jewels from time to time, or you're going to have extra pieces in your sets, or different kind of sets for each attack type to prevent you from having to rejewel all the time. So that's something to be considering as you're building up your sets. In terms of heroes, I mentioned before that you're going to have some essential ones, and that you're going to have then you got the ones that are going to be in your marches. So your leader should be somebody with army attack and army HP for the most part. So those ones on the right are some of the ones that you want to consider. And of course, if you have 11Ks, by all means, use one of those. I didn't put any of the 11Ks in there, but rest assured that they are better than any of the ones on the screen so far. Anyway, pick one of the ones that are on the right there, and that should be at least your leader. Probably more than that, should be in your marches. Not essential, but always a good practice to have as many with army HP and army attack in all of your marches. And then in terms of the essentials, you really need to think about these 4 here. We've got Cursed Hunter, Don Guapo, and Snail Princess. All of those give you the coalition max size increase to get you closer to being over 4 million march that you need to win a lot of these fort battles. You're at a significant disadvantage if you can't fill a fort with 4 million troops. So having these 3 heroes max gold is really essential for that. And then you've got Chronicler. Chronicler is really important because she gives you some very much needed debuffs to kind of counteract some of these fort battles, and that is an essential hero as well. All of those heroes, all of those powers that I just told you about, those all work passively, so they don't need to be, and they shouldn't be, in fact, in your marches. They're not part of your battalions. They just need to be maxed out and somewhere hanging out in your account, and they'll be giving you everything you need. Now, heroes can be expressed in numbers. Sometimes you'll see rally leads say, "Oh, that fort's got a 1-2-2 hero lineup, or that fort's got a 2-1-2, or something like that." And that's what that's saying is what the troop type composition of the heroes are, and that becomes important from time to time because it kind of tells you how they're going to defend, what they're going to be strong in, and so on. So if they've got a lot of, for instance, a lot of troops in range, but they don't have any range heroes in their fort, that's a bad sign. They're probably going to lose because they don't have anybody commanding their range troops. But that numbering system will be useful in indicating what their hero lineup is going to be. I mentioned those 4 heroes, but you really need to have them for those passive skills. Now let's talk about familiars. So the role of familiars in forts are to do things like protect your front line or your attacking forces, or maximize the damage that you want to do to the right type of troops in order to win a fort battle. So if you know you're trying to degrade a particular type of troop, then having the right familiars with the right skills are going to be useful for that. Also, there's some dynamics of familiars that make them work better together. So kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of scenario where the 2 familiars combined actually work better than one of them on their own. That is the case with Jade Worm and Helldrider, and so having these sort of interactions sometimes can be very, very helpful in your fort battles. So these are they really play an important role here, depending on the kind of attack you're going to be making. So you need to make sure that you get these familiars all maxed out if you can. Think about the shield familiars as a priority if you're going to be focusing on fort battles. They're very, very important for fort battles. So think about those shield familiars as a priority. Research. So I think one of the main things you need to be considering, if you haven't already done all of the counter research in the military tree, do that. I think you need those counters. They're extremely important, and give you a much needed boost to fight in these fort battles. And then you've got the wonder battles. So the wonder tree is really Wonder Tree 1, just the regular wonder battles. That's essential. You just need to have that maxed out. Just think about getting that maxed out. And then Wonder Tree 2, you can get part of the way through there and get some benefits from it, and still have some competitiveness. But it is desirable to have all of Wonder Tree 2 complete as well if you want to be competitive in fort battles. And like I say, stats matter everywhere. And then there are things like all the castle stars are giving you a bunch of HP and attack stats that are part of your base stats. So that's really important. And then you've got things like this Lion's Keep skin, and maxing that out to give you that extra 50,000 troops that you can put in a march is really essential as well. So that gets you that's going to help you get above the 4 million mark that you need. So again, army HP and army attack. Treat HP with the same importance as attack. I know when you're starting off in the game and even all the way through it, it's easy to think, oh, I just need more attack stats, I just need more attack stats, I just need more attack. But the truth is that for fort battles, HP is as important as attack. So really put a lot of emphasis on building up your HP. And then you're going to get to a point where you can really evaluate your opponents by looking at what's happening on their gear, on the astrolite makeup of their gear, on the castle stars, and their artifacts, and you can really quickly kind of get a sense of whether or not you're going to be competitive against them in a fort battle. Like I can pretty much guess, within reason, who I'm going to have trouble with in a fort battle just by looking at their profile. That takes us to sizing up the opponent, which is how I look at it. So when I look at somebody's profile, first thing I look at is the gear. You know, they have a lot of champ gear, and then an emphasis on, do they have a lot of accessories, champ accessories, because that just gives you a ton of HP. And are they using the cavalry champ helmet, and does that because that gives a lot of HP, you know, and just kind of look around and see how much HP is being given by all of the armor, and is there a lot of champ gear there. That kind of tells you one part of the story. The second priority thing that I look at is the artifacts, and in particular how many blessed artifacts, and I compare that to mine, and so I know that if somebody's got say that I have 50 blessed artifacts, and if I'm going up against somebody with 100, well, I'm going to have a hard time beating that person. I just know that right off the bat, because unless they've been stupid about the kind of artifacts they're blessing, and they're only blessing like defense artifacts or something like that, then they're going to be tough to beat when you're going up against double the blessed artifacts. And same thing for castle stars, maybe to a lesser extent, because they're kind of spread out, and the way the castle stars work, you can still be competitive if you have fewer, but it's still pretty tough, because those are all bait stats that they're getting. So I look at those three things; those tell me the story about how competitive I think I'm going to be. And like I say, if you're looking at the accessories, that's when you know HP could be an issue. And if you're going to be losing, it's because the HP. So remember the way the HP works. So you've got attack, and attack stats basically tell you how strong your attack is going to be, and HP stats tell you how long you can stay in the fight. So HP is important for, essentially, the way I like to think about it is if you've got a fixed amount of time that the battle lasts, HP is going to help you run out the clock. So can you stay in that fight longer during that time? And attack is going to be how strong were you fighting during that time. So again, blessed artifacts, really important. I think it's probably, aside from just the basics of looking at gear and noticing the difference between purple and mythic or something like that, the number of blessed artifacts tell a very strong story. Okay, let's talk now about comps and counters. So the basics of comps. So first thing is there are some, I'm going to say there are three types of classes of variants that I'll describe. One is 848, then 884, and then a third that I'll just call disruptors. Now these aren't standard terms, and some people would claim that those aren't the right way to break up the variants. Whatever. This is the way I'm thinking about it, and that I'd like to tell you about. So there's lots of variations in each of those types of classes, and the lower stats players can use, in particular, the disruptor type comps to beat variants that have a higher statistical, that have more stats than them, but they're going to have a hard time holding those forts. So, for instance, I know I can blast my way out into a fort, but I probably can't hold it with that blast, and that's kind of a disruption that I can make. The other thing to note is that very small changes in the comps and familiars and phalanx choices can make a big difference in whether or not you win or lose. So it's sometimes just a small variation that can make a big difference. So some of the comps, again, all the comps are described in 3 numbers like 848, 424, these sort of things. These numbers are actually the same. So 424 is just one way of describing the comp, and it's just it's a percentage against 100%. So 40%, 20%, 40%. While 848 describes how many troops you would put in a 200K march. So that would be 80,000, 40,000, 80,000. So you'll hear them, they're kind of interchangeable. Some people kind of get used to calling out 424. Some people get used to calling out 848. Some same thing with 442 or 884, 433 or 866. You know, it's the same sort of thing. So you'll just have to get used to understanding that they're the same kind of mechanism for describing the comps. And so I've just put some common examples of these comps in there. How I've broken them up into 848 variants. So that's all the ones I've listed there. There's more obviously than that. I'm just giving you the most common ones, I think. And then 884, and then some common variants of that, 992, 7112, that sort of thing. And then the common disruptor ones, 208, 055, 1433. These are some common ones, and I'm going to get into these in a little more detail. And then some comps that the really strong guys typically use are the ones that have that are more spread or have a higher cavalry component. So something like 866, 668, 659, these sort of comps, I've noticed that the bigger guys tend to favor those sort of comps more than some of the other ones. This, if you've played very much and been around on YouTube and all that, you've probably seen something like this. Thanks to Coco, whoever Coco is, this got passed to me years ago, and it's one of those little cheat sheets that have been created. It's a little old, so there's been some newer comps that people are using that aren't really listed on here, but this is still a pretty good reference sheet for what beats what and what some of the common comps look like. So worth having around and keeping around in case you need it. So all of these comps have a natural counter, and then the depending upon your strength versus your opponent's strength and your choices in how you in familiars and phalanx and all of this is going to determine whether or not you're going to win. So one thing to note about phalanxes. So in fort battles, phalanxes, your goal is not to counter the phalanx. So you know that as an example, in a castle rally, if somebody's sitting in range phalanx, then your goal is to hit them with infantry, as much infantry as you can get, and an infantry probably going to use an infantry phalanx going up against their range phalanx. That's not what you're trying to do in fort battles. In fort battles, what you're trying to do is preserve the attacking forces that will do the most damage based to the opponent based on what they're using in terms of their phalanx and what their composition looks like. So, for instance, if you just had very similarly matched 848s going up against each other, so they're both using 848 comps, and they both have similar stats, then range phalanx will beat infantry phalanx, or if there's any weakness, if it's slightly stronger, it'll beat the other guy. Cavalry phalanx will beat range, and infantry phalanx will beat cavalry. So it sounds counterintuitive if you're used to fighting the castle rallies, but this is the kind of play that you're going through when you're fighting some fort battles. You might try to get an advantage pretty sure they're going to be sitting in a range phalanx, you might want to switch to a cavalry phalanx in order to counter them on the phalanx side and give you an advantage. Now, it's not going to help you if your stats are worse. If you have less HP and there's all the other dynamics. So it's not a silver bullet, but it is one of the things that you should be considering. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the disruptors. So, if you're going up against a stronger opponent, and you know that they're stronger, they've got better stats than you, you can still beat them, and you can still beat them by using one of these disruptor type comps, where you go at them with something like a 208, which is obviously heavy in cavalry, and what you do is you go up against something with low range. So like an 848, the 4, meaning that only 40% of their troops are range. If you're going up against something like that, you can often win by sending a 208 at that 848 formation. Now, once you do that, you might knock them out of the fort, but you'll have to get out of there and put something else in, because you probably aren't going to be able to defend in 208. It's tough. It's a tough composition to defend in. So that's an example of a disruptor comp. Another one is 055, and 055 is maybe what they would send at you if you left your 208 in. So if you have something with low range count, or there are 2 or more infantry leaders, heroes, in their setup, you might have a good chance at knocking them out with a 055. Now, go to somewhere else to find the specifics about setting up 055. There's a lot of good information all over YouTube on that, so go check that out, and I'll give you some shout outs at the end where you can look. But that's one of the disruptor types. And then one that I've been noticing recently people are using, which I think is kind of a 992 variant in a way, but also a little bit of a disruptor, is the 711-2 variant, which I think will be used again against 848 type variants, and if they're statistically stronger. That one's good because you can go in with a 711-2, and it won't take much to kind of change out the fills, so you can refill with something else and still defend in that kind of setup pretty easily. Whereas defending in a 208 or 055 configuration can be much tougher. So again, you can find more information on these type of compositions in other places. So if you want to get used to sending these type of things, you can do that by researching that elsewhere. Okay, so let's talk about what happens during the fight. So during the fort battles, a few things to consider. One is that you're going to be switching out your comps and to counter the enemy's move. So if they've scouted you and they know you're in 848, and they're planning on hitting you with something that might counter that, you might wait a minute and then swap it out with something else that'll beat their counter. So there's a lot of kind of cat and mouse that goes on during some intense fort battles. The other thing you need to do is keep your comp preserved. So if you're defending, you take a hit, and then you know you're going to take another hit. Make sure you get everybody to refill quickly with whatever comp you want to either change to, or if you want to stay with the same comp, make sure that those refills happen quickly. Uh, One of the things that, as a rally leader, is very frustrating is people tend to just send their troops and forget them, and assume that that they've done their job, and their job their job starts up again as soon as that fort gets hit. So they gotta refill as quickly as possible, and if they're not, then you're left with a fragmented kind of fort that you're trying to defend with. So obviously, the percentage of T5 makes a huge difference. And the sigils. So getting to that 1600 sigils is really something that everybody should be looking to do, but as many as you can get, and if your T5 percentage is higher, it can make all the difference. So you can have a stronger opponent, but you can have more T5 in the fort and win. And you need to consider, if it's down to the crunch and you're in that last battle of WoW, and all you got to do is hold this one rally. You might be thinking about filling it with T5, full T5. Just give me everything, give me all you got, and they're made to die. It's expensive, but it will win you that final battle if you need to. Keep communications high, and keep the chat low. So, you're doing these fort battles. They're intense. They're intense for everybody, but the rally lead, fighting these forts, is got a lot of moving pieces to think about how to counter the other guy, what phalanx to use, whether or not to pull, whether to put in a different composition completely, timings, everything. So that there's so much going on in that. So it's important to make sure that you're communicating what you need from everybody in terms of the fills, the refills. Let them know if you're going to pull, all that sort of stuff. So keep the communications high, but the distractions need to be low. So the chit chat during WoW, for instance, is not a great combination. So also when you're setting up your battalions, I would send just one troop type or even troops across all of the troop types as the rally lead, just because you don't want to give away what kind of comp you are sending by having your comp match that comp. So I wouldn't ever send a 4-2-4 type of setup in my comp when I'm putting a rally together and sending it into a fort. Just send everything even and have everybody else send the variations. And last but not least, stay caffeinated. Everybody needs to be, clicking and moving at pace. You can't have everybody kind of taking naps in the middle of fort battles, because things need to happen quickly. You need to change things out quickly, especially if you think about something like Dragon Arena, where you've got 1 minute, 2 minute type of fort battles. Those things can change quickly, and if you're trying to chase down a caravan or something like that, you got to be fast on your feet. So make sure that you're getting everybody to fill. Make sure that they are on time when they get to you, and all of that, so that you're able to get the rally walking on time. All of that is really important. So everybody involved needs to be on their toes. Okay, lastly, I just want to do a shout out real quickly to some people that on YouTube that I've learned a lot from, and I appreciate them. Crystal Briefs got some great content there on fort battles and all of the specifics, really digging into the weeds of all of that, and much appreciated. I'm kind of a data guy myself, so I appreciate people that go into that sort of level of detail. And then obviously Worthy Prince needs no introduction. He's is one of the best YouTubers out there for this game, and has been for years, and is always giving out some good advice and some good examples of how to play the game. So much appreciated to both of those guys. So with that, I'm going to leave you there, and I want to thank you for coming. If you like this video and you learned something, please subscribe. We'd like to get more subscribers and get encouragement to create more content. So please send us those likes and subscribes. Thanks for coming.